Hello, this is Emrys, and welcome to Girls with Sabers. It is time we talk about death in the Maiden and Reylo. I realize this topic is of academic purpose, and seeing the trope of death in the Maiden in The Force Awakens is a valid interpretation of Reylo, albeit for a very brief moment. One of the reasons I dislike Reylo being compared to death in the Maiden is that trope's symbolic meaning. Death in the Maiden is not a love story. It is more consequential than mere opposites attracting each other. It is a tale of obsession, torture, and the tragic end of the Maiden. Most aunties claim that Reylo is abusive, and death in the Maiden, I believe, is one of the roots of this confusion. Gothic romances such as Twilight, Dracula, and The Phantom of the Opera play on this trope. However, the common thread to all those stories is that if the maiden succumbs to her love for death, she will die physically, or will die to her humanity to become a creature like death. So let's discuss the general knowledge of this trope. Death in this trope is usually seen as a skeleton or an old man. The maiden is usually in her teens and is vulnerable and usually scantily clothed or in the nude. Most of the art depicts torture of the maiden, and usually it is in the context of a sexual situation, or it is a celebration of the maiden's death. In fact, Death in the Maiden references the dance of death, a medieval allegory that all must die at one point. The young and the old, the rich and the poor, death even comes to the pure, chaste, and beautiful maiden. So when does death in the maiden trope apply? Here are examples of the death in the maiden trope used correctly in literature and pop culture. In the novel of The Phantom of the Opera, Eric the Phantom is around 50 years old, and Christine is a teenage girl. Phantom wanted Christine to share his fate, to stay in his lair, to sing the music of the night, to become his possession. Down once more to the dungeon of my black despair, down we plunge to the prison of my mind. Down that path into darkness, deep as hell. In the Twilight Saga, although Edward looks like a sparkling teenage vampire, he was actually born in the 1900s. Bella was willing to risk damnation in order to be with Edward. The only way she can remain with him was to become a vampire like himself, to be a creature like himself, and thus she loses her humanity. I realize many see Bella's sacrifice as an act of true love, that she was willing to sacrifice her humanity to remain with her one true love. However, is that really true love? Does true love ask you to change a good nature and exchange it for a creature's nature? Of course, Twilight wouldn't be here without its precursor, Bram Stoker's Dracula. Dracula seeks the pure bride Mina and other women out for the sole purpose of either killing them or making them into creatures like himself. Van Helsing and the men, as well as Mina's fiancé Jonathan, are trying to rescue these women from their death and condemnation to hell, to preserve civilization itself. Yes, Force Awakens references death in the maiden in the woods, albeit for only a short duration and a misdirect, when Kylo approaches Rey and bridal carries her to his ship. Abrams used that trope to instill confusion and suspense, drama and tension as momentary misdirection. We see Rey being chased by Kylo down a maze-looking ravine, similar to how the Phantom escorts Christine down the labyrinth to his lair. We see a masked figure, dressed in black, approaching her, and he enters her mind. And in this labyrinth, where night is blind, the Phantom of the Opera is there inside my mind. At that moment, we as the audience see Kylo Ren as death. The death of it all, perhaps the death of Rey herself. It isn't until Rey persuades him to take off his mask that we see a conflicted prince under a mask, inside a costume that is not his own. In an article from GQ magazine, it states, Driver was drawn to an idea that J.J. Abrams, who wrote and directed The Force Awakens, had. The man behind the mask was not a man at all, but rather a young person struggling to come of age. I remember the initial conversations about having things skinned, Driver recalls. peeling away layers to evolve into other people, and the person's Kylo pretending to be on the outside is not who he is. He's a vulnerable kid who doesn't know where to put his energy, but when he puts on his mask, suddenly he's playing a role. JJ had that idea initially, and I think Ryan took it to the next level. The difference between Phantom and Kylo, the difference between Kylo and the Death and the Maiden trope is, Kylo is not death personified or an old man attracted to youth. Kylo is a young man in conflict, attracted to a young woman who is his equal. He doesn't wish for Rey to succumb to death. He is a Byronic hero in a Gothic romance, similar to the characters previously discussed. But unlike them, his character development and path diverges into another stream of thought. Gothic romance seeks out to answer the question, who is the monster and who is the man? In the examples previously discussed, the characters are monsters, for they prey on the maiden, like death preys in the Death and the Maiden trope. These monsters may have glimpses of redemption, but they do not fully turn or only see light in their final moments. The other stream of the Byronic hero in the Gothic romance is a man hidden in the shell of a monster, and that man needs transformation, permanent, lasting transformation. And usually, Byronic heroes have a maiden that ignites the sparks of his goodness that he doesn't realize is left. It is because mercy triumphs over justice in these tales. Redemption comes to the monster and frees the man inside so that he might live again and receive full transformation. He may not deserve mercy, but as modeled in Shakespeare's romances like The Winter's Tale, The Tempest, and Pericles, mercy comes to save the condemned from their due judgment. And because the man turns and becomes the hero of the story, he receives that mercy. He receives life again with that maiden. He receives resurrection of the hero.
So guys, if you really enjoyed what we had to say today, please give us a big thumbs up, like this video, comment below, subscribe to our channel, make sure to turn on notifications to all so you get all the new content we feel like dropping on any given day, really.